To kick off round two, the San Francisco 49ers select Ole Miss wide receiver Deshaun Stribling out of Ole Miss. He is a perfect fit for this offense, but he earns a C plus for me because this is really early to take for a guy with his route running ability. He's still raw as a route runner coming out, even though he's that crazy explosive athlete. He's got good hands. And I think why the 49ers draft him here specifically is for his run blocking ability. He's going to replace the Jawan Jennings role in that offense where it's a slot role where you got to do a lot of the dirty work. He has the big frame to do just that. But unlike Jennings, he is not the crafty route runner that can create separation on his own on third downs and things of that nature. But he does have a lot more explosive ability than Jennings ever did. He ran in the 4.3s at the combine. So it's an interesting fit, but the 49ers added another wide receiver to Brock Purdy in that unit. With 34th overall pick, the Arizona Cardinals select Texas A&M guard Chase Bisontis, and this is an A grade from me. He's going to open up running lanes for Jeremiah Love. He's going to protect whoever is under center there at quarterback, and he is just going to provide a physical presence that this Cardinals offensive line has been missing. When they took Isaiah Adams in the third round a couple years ago, they wanted him to bring that, but he has not lived up to his draft capital, and I'm guessing that Bisontis might even replace him in the starting lineup. This guy is a true guard, though. You're not moving him to center. You're not moving him to tackle. With no tackle options available on the board, I think this was the best option for the Cardinals here. With the 36th overall pick, the Houston Texans select Ohio State defensive tackle Caden McDonald, and I love this pick. It's an A+. I think this is the cherry on top of what was already a dominant Texans defense. It's a guy that I would have drafted, truthfully, in the first round for them, given how talented he is. This is the best run defender in this draft class. He had the most run stops in all of college football last year, and he's only a junior. The guy only recently turned 21. He's only going to get bigger. He's only going to get stronger. And now I don't know what you do when you're facing this Texans defense. The weak link was they had undersized DTs. Now they have a guy who can eat up double teams, keep those linebackers clean, and you ain't going to run on him. So an A+ pick. With a 37th overall pick, the New York Giants select Tennessee cornerback Colton Hood, and it's a B+ grade for me. I like this pick for the Giants because of what he could be. He doesn't need to play right now. I think that's the biggest thing. And why I was a little bit lower on him is because I saw a guy who's a little bit of a project. He's only been a starter for 1 year in college football after transferring from Colorado to Tennessee this past fall. And in that 1 year as a starter, he showed awesome traits in press coverage. He's physical at the line of scrimmage. He has speed to make up ground down the football field. But I saw a guy who was up and down on tape with inconsistent read and react ability. So he needs some seasoning. But he goes to a spot in New York where they're not going to thrust him in right away. They have a lot of cornerbacks in that room. He's just another guy to add on. If you watch John Harbaugh's tenure in Baltimore, he always loved a stacked cornerback room, and that's exactly what he's building here now in New York. With the 38th overall pick, the Las Vegas Raiders select Arizona slot cornerback Traden Stukes, and this is an A grade from me. I love just adding a guy who is versatile to this Raiders secondary. It's one of the worst secondaries in the NFL, and if you watch Stukes on tape, he can play slot, he can play outside, he can play deep safety. This guy is super versatile. He's rangy, all-around athlete, and in coverage this past season, 4 picks. He can play man, he can play zone. I think the only reason this guy didn't go in the first round is he's 24 years old. He's one of the older prospects in this draft class, but he's a former walk-on who worked his way up into one of the best defensive backs in college football. I think Raiders fans are going to be happy with this one. With the 39th overall pick, the Cleveland Browns select Washington wide receiver Denzel Boston, and this is an A selection. I love doubling up at wide receiver in this deep class, especially for a team in Cleveland that they got nobody at that position, unfortunately, right now. They need all the help they can get, and they're also very complementary skill sets between Denzel Boston and Casey Concepcion. Casey Concepcion is your movable vertical threat. Boston is your outside possession guy. And what Boston has that KC doesn't have is hands. This guy had a 3.6% career drop rate, amazing ball skills, especially in contested situations. And he's 6'4", 212 pounds. He can really manhandle corners on the outside, establish positioning and make plays in the red zone. So complimentary wide receivers, they are building a great receiving core for whoever wins that quarterback job there in Cleveland. With the 40th overall pick, the Kansas City Chiefs select R. Mason Thomas, edge rusher out of Oklahoma. And this is an A grade for me. To me, he's one of the safest pass rushers in this draft class. The guy knows how to rush the passer. He has a lot of moves at his disposal. He plays with great leverage. I think he can even bull rush, even though he's undersized, which is the interesting thing about this pick. It's a distinct departure from the Chiefs' tenure with Steve Spagnuolo at defensive coordinator. They've always coveted bigger body defensive ends. This suggests a little bit of an update to their defense. The way a lot of defenses are going around the NFL, adding more speed and more movable chess pieces, like a guy like R. Mason Thomas. So I think he's going to fill a lot of the shoes that Leo Chanel did as a third down sort of movable pass rusher in that defense, because he's a great explosive athlete who can be a rusher from really anywhere with how skilled he is. So I love this fit, and I love what it signals for this Chiefs defense. With the 41st overall pick, the Cincinnati Bengals select Cassius Howell, defensive end out of Texas A&M, and this is an A-plus grade for me. I love this for the Bengals because they lost Trey Hendrickson this offseason. You're not going to replace him with just one guy and think that guy's going to get it done. But what they do is by committee. They signed Boye Mafe in free agency, and now they get a pass rush specialist in the draft who is a distinct different type of defensive end than they've gone for historically. They like those big, long monsters who can be two-way guys. This is a pure pass rush specialist in Cassius Howell, who had under 31-inch arms at the combine. But when you watch him on tape, he had 11 and a half sacks in the SEC last year. The guy can rush the passer. He can do it in his sleep. He has a ton of moves at his disposal. I go back to 2024 when he faced Will Campbell. I thought he gave the number 4 overall pick last year the most problems of anyone he faced. This guy is a twitchy mover. And for all those reasons, I think is in a great spot because he can just be a specialist. He can be a third down guy there for Cincy because of the first rounders they've drafted at that position the past couple of years. With the 42nd overall pick, the New Orleans Saints select Georgia defensive tackle Kristen Miller. I gave it a B plus. It's a very solid pick. It's not a super sexy pick because Kristen Miller is, for all intents and purposes, a run defender in this defense. He has the most prototypical 3-4 defensive end traits in this draft class. He is a two-gapper. He can really play the run. He's big, he's long, and he comes from that Georgia defense where they can two-gap in their sleep. He's been doing it for years now. I just worry about if he's ever going to give you much as a pass rusher. He's not super explosive. He's not super twitchy laterally. His best reps as a pass rusher came as a pure bull rusher, collapsing the pocket. And even that he didn't do too often. So I think he might be capped in that regard, but you're getting a very good run defender with this pick. With the 43rd overall pick, the Miami Dolphins select Texas Tech linebacker Jacob Rodriguez. This is an A pick from me. I think Rodriguez is a tremendous linebacker prospect. I mean, he was a tremendous collegiate linebacker. The guy racked up awards last year. He was the best linebacker in college football, bar none. His ability to force fumbles, his ability to range sideline to sideline, it really is all there. And for the Miami Dolphins, it just kind of keeps the trend going now of just drafting high floor football players. I think that's what they've done with their first 3 picks. They may not be sexy, they may not be superstars, but these guys know how to play the game at a really high level. Jacob Rodriguez can be basically an extension of Jeff Hafley on the football field. That's how well he sees the game. He doesn't have the prototypical frame. He's not that sort of long, rangy guy who can really stack and shed linebackers, but he plays the game fast, and that's going to matter for that defense. With the 44th overall pick, the Detroit Lions select Michigan edge rusher Derek Moore, and this is an A- grade for me. The Lions are really leaning in to the culture fits. If you watch Derek Moore play at Michigan, you know what I'm talking about. This guy plays with his hair on fire. He's one of the highest effort rushers in this draft class. He had a bull rush rep at the Senior Bowl where he just bowled right through the left tackle. That's like the standard rep for him. That's what he dreams of, is just being able to bowl over tackles as a pass rusher. So he is a guy that is going to fit right in to that locker room. It's just he's kind of limited physically. That's why he falls to this point in the draft. He's not super explosive. He doesn't have super long arms, but this guy's a good football player at a position that the Lions needed. With the 45th overall pick, the Baltimore Ravens select Zion Young, defensive end out of Missouri. And this is unfortunately a C-plus grade for me. I just worry about Zion being a bit of a tweener at the next level. Now, he had a massive breakout season this past year, 57 total pressures. He was a monster in the running game, and he is a massive defensive end, almost 6'6", long arms, almost 270 pounds. But that's where I worry. He reminds me a little bit of the former Missouri defensive end, Darius Robinson, who struggled himself to transition to the NFL because as an athlete, I mean, he moves more like a defensive tackle, Zion Young does. His testing numbers were pretty poor when you compare him to edge rushers, and I'm not sure he has the get off to really threaten NFL offensive tackles. But he's never played on the interior in his collegiate career. He's always been an outside guy. So I think at least he's going to spell Trey Hendrickson on early downs. At least you can get him to be a plus run defender at this point in time. But I'm just not sure he's ever going to be a plus pass rusher at the next level. With the 46th overall pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Missouri linebacker Josiah Trotter, and this is an A grade from me. I've loved the Bucs draft so far. They have got some butt kickers in this front seven after going Ruben Bay in the first round, and now Josiah Trotter here. To me, he's built to play for Todd Bowles' defense. He loves playing on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage. He had 12 tackles for loss last season. He can knife into the backfield with ease, whether it's as a run defender or as a blitzer. And that's what you get asked to do in Todd Bowles' defense, right? He is going to be coming downhill a lot, and he does that with relative ease. So I think this is a great fit at a position that was a drastic need for this team. With the 47th pick, the Steelers select Jeremy Bernard, wide receiver out of Alabama, and this is an A-plus pick. I think if you wanted to come away from this draft with an offensive tackle and a wide receiver, given where the Steelers were drafting originally, this is about as good as you could have hoped for Steelers fans. I know Max Sinatra is not going to play right away, but Jeremy Bernard is. This guy is NFL ready. He's a crafty, nuanced route runner. The only thing really missing from his game is the deep threat, the explosive downfield ability, but you watch him move, it's so effortless the way he gets open, the way he moves after the catch. He's one of the best in that regard in this draft class. And I just think with his hands, with his all-around ability, this guy can make an impact right now. And that's what the Steelers were looking for when they wanted to go get Mekhi Lemon. And obviously they missed out on that, but this was the next best thing at this point in time. With the 48th pick in the NFL draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Avion Terrell, cornerback out of Clemson. And if the name sounds familiar, yes, he is the younger brother of A.J. Terrell, the other Falcons cornerback. And this is an A-plus pick, not only because of that, because it's awesome that the brothers are reuniting here, but because he's that good. I am super high on this guy. To me, the way I've been describing him is like the younger brother version of AJ. Like he's smaller, but he's scrappier. He's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder because everyone's been talking about his brother his entire life, and that's how he plays the cornerback position. He falls here because he ran a slow pro day 40. And obviously, when you're on the 4.6s, not a lot of teams are going to draft you in the first round. But it reminds me of Kamari Lassiter, who ran the 4.6s a couple of years ago, fell the second round for the Texans, and he's just been dominant ever since. I think Terrell is just that kind of guy. You watch his tape, and he can cover with ease. He's got some of the best hips in this draft class, and he forced 8 fumbles the past 2 years. Yes, 8 fumbles at the cornerback position. This guy is a baller. The Falcons got a good one. With the 49th overall pick, the Carolina Panthers select Texas Tech defensive tackle Lee Hunter. I love this one. This is an A-plus pick for me for a number of reasons. One is just the fit in Carolina. They needed help at that second defensive tackle spot next to Derek Brown. He was doing a lot of heavy lifting for them in the running game. And now they got, for my money, the best playmaking, run-defending defensive tackle in this draft class. If you watched Hunter in that Oregon game in the playoff, he was everywhere. I think he had 6 run stops in that game. And going back to 2023, when he was at UCF, he led the nation in run stops that year. He's been doing it for a while now. The problem is he's not a great against double teams. That's probably his biggest weakness, but they got Derek Brown for that. That's what he specializes in. If you put him next to Derek Brown and just let him be the playmaker, he is going to make a lot of plays, and he has some pass rush pop too. I'm just excited about what this guy could be in what's a revamped Carolina Panthers defensive line. With 50th overall pick, the New York Jets select Indiana cornerback D'Angelo Pons, and this is an A-plus grade for me. This one was written in the stars. He is almost an identical carbon copy to Jets head coach Aaron Glenn in every single way. The size, only 5'8", only 182 pounds. The speed, he ran in the 4.3s, and then the way he plays the game. He is an absolute dog. He faced some of the best receivers in college football the past 2 seasons, and I can confidently say only one guy got the better of him, Jeremiah Smith, and he might be the #1 overall pick next year from Ohio State. So he never backs down, and he's so skilled, and he's been doing it since day one. So if you're worried about drafting a cornerback that small, and it is a worry, right? He's the smallest cornerback since Aaron Glenn to be drafted top 50, but it never mattered on tape, and to me, that's what matters most. With the 51st overall pick, the Minnesota Vikings select Cincinnati linebacker Jake Golday. And to me, this is an A grade. He is a perfect scheme fit for this defense because he's a former edge rusher. The guy only switched to off-ball linebacker a couple of years ago, and I thought he looked great in coverage. His range is exceptional despite still looking like an edge rusher. I mean, he's 6'5", 240 pounds, and when he rushed the passer, took on blocks in the box, he still has a lot of those same take-on skills that it's going to take to rush the passer at a high level in the NFL. And so for Brian Flores' defense, that's such an amoeba in the front seven that guys have to do a lot of different things. Jake Golday is the perfect fit because he can do that, because he can range down the middle of the field, because he can rush the passer like a defensive end, do all those things at a high level. With 52nd overall pick, the Green Bay Packers select South Carolina cornerback Brandon Cisse. This is an A minus for me. I do like the fit a lot for the Packers defense. It's a very zone heavy defense. And a lot of times they have corners in off coverage looking through receivers to the quarterback. And that's when Cisse is at his best. His flat foot breaks are explosive. He is super twitchy, and his ability to come downhill is tremendous. And I thought he's one of the best fillers in the running game as well, which the Packers need, especially after how last season ended for them. So I think he has slot versatility, even if the Packers may not need it. But he is a perfect scheme fit, and he's still young, not even 21 years old yet. So the only knock really is his ability in man coverage, where he was kind of up and down on tape last year at South Carolina. But again, he's so young that he can improve in that regard and make this a good pick for the Packers. With the 53rd pick in the draft, the Indianapolis Colts select Georgia linebacker CJ Allen, and this is an A grade for me. It fills a big need, and I think it's a value pick as well. I had CJ Allen as a top 50 guy, and he's been super productive over his Georgia career. This is a guy that was starting as a true freshman for Kirby Smart's defense. If you know anything about Kirby Smart, you know that's a rarity that he trusts a freshman that early on. And I think that's why he's a perfect fit for Lou Anarumo's defense, is because he is a guy that called plays at times on the field. Kirby Smart trusted him to do that. His football IQ is off the charts. So if you know Lou Anarumo's defense, it's super complex. He asks the guys to do a lot of different things. CJ Allen is going to have them lined up right in the right spots. So for that reason alone, it's a good pick. With the 54th overall pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select Vanderbilt tight end Eli Stowers, and this is a B grade for me. It's a hard pick to judge right now, truthfully, because he's such a boomer bust sort of prospect. He's a freak athlete. He tied the combine record for the highest vertical of all time, not just the tight end position, all positions, 45 and a half inches. The guy can really roll, but he's 239 pounds. He only switched from quarterback to tight end a few years ago, still looks more like a wide receiver than a tight end. And the worrisome thing for me, especially going to the Eagles, is that he's just not a good blocker. And he is truly wasn't even asked to do it much on tape at Vanderbilt because he's not good at it. So I don't know what his plan is, but it's more of a pick for 3 or 4 years from now, in my opinion, than it is for right now in Philly. With the 55th overall pick, the New England Patriots select Illinois defensive end Gabe Akis, and this is an A pick for me. Akis is one of my favorite pass rushing prospects in this draft class. He's been doing it the past few years at Illinois. He had double-digit sacks this last year. And if you watch Illinois' defense, you know he's really the only guy you had to worry about there on that front, and he still got the job done. And he's a former state champion wrestler who actually had to cut weight. He actually got lighter to play defensive end at Illinois, and you see that wrestling background with how twitchy he is with his hands. His hands are as violent and as quick as anyone's in this draft class, and he just has so many different ways to win that I think he's only going to continue to flourish at the next level. So for the Patriots, a team that definitely needed an edge rusher after losing Caleb Von Chason, this is a great fit. With the 56th overall pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Nate Boerkircher, tight end out of Texas A&M. And this one's going to get a C grade for me. Now, I might be higher on it than other people too, because on the consensus board, he's outside the top 150. I think I was the highest person on him in draft media, and I still had him 30 picks later than where he comes off the board. I just think it's a little bit of a misappropriation of value, considering Boerkircher is going to be a 25-year-old rookie. He was never even a starter, truthfully, at any point during his collegiate career between Nebraska and then Texas A&M this past year, and his best season only had 198 yards. But I'll say this. The guy is darn good. He's a great inline blocker. He's a talented underneath wide receiver, and I think he'll be a good complement to Brenton Strange. But it's what kind of value are you getting from that role? And could you have gotten it later in this draft? I think they very well could have. That's why I give it a C. With the 57th overall pick, the Chicago Bears select Iowa center Logan Jones, and this is a D plus for me. This feels like they pigeonholed themselves into one position that they needed because Drew Dahlman, their center from a year ago, retired, and picked the one guy who's an outside zone scheme fit that they thought would be best for their running game. And he is. He's a good scheme fit for Ben Johnson's running game. That's what he's done his entire career at Iowa. But I think you're going to give up a lot in pass protection with Logan Jones. He was a liability already in that regard in college and will be probably even more so at his size in the NFL. And I thought there were other outside zone scheme fits in this center class who were a lot better in pass protection, a lot bigger guys than Logan Jones. So for all those reasons, it kind of just felt like a team really pigeonholing themselves. And I hate when teams do that. So it's getting a D plus. With the 58th overall pick, the Cleveland Browns select Toledo safety Emmanuel McNeil Warren. This is an A-plus pick. He won't have to travel too far, and that's what he does on tape. He doesn't have to move too far. This guy's a box safety. He is an elite box safety prospect in my eyes. He's 6'3", over 200 pounds, and he's a hitter. He's forced 11 fumbles over the course of his career, and I just love the feet and the footwork out in space. The guy for a taller safety moves so easily, and that's why he's one of the best tacklers in this draft class. So I think for a Cleveland Browns defense that could use that position, could have used a guy in this role, I think he's going to be a day one starter for them. I love this pick. With the 59th overall pick, the Houston Texans select Michigan tight end Marlon Klein, and this is the most head-scratching pick of the entire draft so far. It's a D minus for me. I don't get it on a number of levels. One is just it's not even a need. They have 5 tight ends on the roster right now. 2 of them are on rookie deals. One of them is getting paid a good amount of money in Dalton Schultz. I don't know where he fits in that pecking order. Secondly, because I don't really even see him as a developmental sort of prospect. He does have a unique background. He grew up in Germany. He didn't grow up playing football until a little later on than most here in the USA. But on tape, he's not a smooth athlete that I think could be like an Eli Stowers to develop into a high-end pass rusher. He had a really bad 3-cone time at his pro day. He just doesn't move like that in space. And I didn't even think he was a great run blocker to even just be that sort of guy. So for a lot of reasons, this was my least favorite pick of the entire draft so far. With the 60th overall pick, the Tennessee Titans select Texas linebacker Anthony Hill, and this one gets an A- grade for me. Outside of the guys that went top 10 in this linebacker class, Anthony Hill is the best athlete in this class. The guy is a freak. He moves so well at the second level. He ran a 4.51, and he's got the size to be a true do-it-all linebacker. He just doesn't quite have the instincts right now or the consistency on tape. But you know what? He goes to a spot with Robert Saleh where he has taken those guys year after year after year and turned them into special linebackers again and again. So this guy has as many developmental tools in the draft, and he's going to a place where they develop them as good as anyone. So he landed in the right spot to succeed here. With the 61st overall pick, the Los Angeles Rams select Ohio State tight end Max Clare. This one gets a B plus for me. I think he has the most natural receiving ability in this tight end class. You saw it a lot more a couple of years ago, 2024, when he was at Purdue and when he was their leading receiver. He was featured in that offense. And I always loved tight ends who get treated like featured receivers in college. That tends to speak to their relative skill level. Obviously was an afterthought at Ohio State, but still can be that sort of guy at the NFL level. I more just question the fit because the Rams already have a ton of tight ends. I know they use a ton of tight ends, but Claire isn't a great blocker, and I'm not sure what skill set he necessarily brings to the table for them right now, but there's no denying he's a very talented football player. With the 62nd overall pick, the Buffalo Bills select Ohio State cornerback Davison Igbinosun. This one gets a C plus from me, unfortunately, for a couple of reasons. One, I don't necessarily get the fit. Igbinosun is a true outside cornerback, and the Bills already have a couple of good outside cornerbacks. One they drafted last year in Maxwell Harrison, one they're paying a lot in Christian Benford. So I don't think he can move to the slot. That's not a skill set I saw from him on tape. And so I don't think he starts right away. And then from a pure value perspective, I think he's a good zone corner. I think he's a good tackler, but I saw a limited man coverage athlete. Speedier receivers really gave him fits on tape. He's a little bit stiff, a little bit high cut. And for those reasons, I saw him more as a late day 2 to early day 3 type of pick. And to take him in the second round, I think was just a reach. With the 63rd overall pick, the Los Angeles Chargers select Florida center Jake Slaughter. And this one gets a C plus for me. Notice because I said center there, not interior offensive lineman. I think that's the biggest thing. They just signed Tyler Biadasz this offseason. 3 years, $30 million. Jake Slaughter is a center only. I think Biotish is kind of a center only too. Now, I don't deny he's a good scheme fit for Mike McDaniel's offense, but after those 3 years, is Mike McDaniel even going to be offensive coordinator? I'm not sure which of these guys moves to guard. That's where their need was. But again, they picked a guy who I would call a center only. Now, he's good on the move. He's good in space, but his play strength is an issue. I think that could be an issue in pass protection for the Chargers, especially if they move him to guard. So we'll see what the plan is. But for now, it's a C plus pick. With the 64th overall pick, the Seattle Seahawks select Bud Clark, safety out of TCU. This is an A grade for me. It feels like the Seahawks are just replacing the guys they lost in free agency with this year's draft class. They replaced Kenny Walker in the first round, and now they're replacing Kobe Bryant at safety. And at this point in the draft, this was the best guy to replace Kobe Bryant. Truthfully, outside of the first round, this was the best guy to do it. He is fantastic in coverage, especially on the back end. 15 picks in his career, 20 pass breakups. He has great range. He's a long dude. He just is not a run defender. You don't want him around the box. Good news is Seattle doesn't want him around the box either. They don't need him around the box. So he goes to the perfect place for his skill set, and he should thrive there. With the 65th overall pick, the Arizona Cardinals select Carson Beck, quarterback out of Miami. This one gets a D grade for me. It's one of my least favorite picks of the draft. It feels like they're just throwing their fan base a bone, saying, hey, oh, look, we drafted a quarterback. He could start for us this year. And that maybe is the selling point here from Beck. He's very experienced. He's 24 years old. He could potentially start year one for the Arizona Cardinals, but he just doesn't have high-end tools. He doesn't get you excited. They like him so much that they took a running back and a guard before they took him, the most valuable position in the NFL. And I just don't love the team building strategy. It feels like you're burning a pick on a backup, a long-term backup for you, for a team that needs help when you could realistically be in next year's quarterback class, and probably will be if Carson Beck's your starter year one. So for all those reasons, I'm just not a fan of this pick. With the 66th overall pick, the Denver Broncos select Texas A&M defensive tackle Tyler Onyedum. He is a B minus for me, this pick, because I don't think he has high-end pass rushing potential. I don't think he's necessarily an impact run defender right now, but what he is an explosive athlete who can really fill that Jonathan Franklin Myers role in the defense because he has good length, because I think he's versatile. So this one's more of a project, I'll say. I think it's year 2, year 3, where you could start to see some dividends from him. But for a Denver Broncos team, I love the investment in this defensive line. It's your strength. It's your bread and butter. Keep it as strength. With the 67th overall pick, the Las Vegas Raiders select Kieron Crawford, defensive end out of Auburn. I'm a fan of this pick. This is an A pick for me. I think at this point in the draft, if you're looking at pass rushers who can get after the quarterback, this is the top guy on my board because he was relatively late to football, only started playing midway through his high school career, and you've seen him improve by leaps and bounds. Even from 2024 to 2025, he had 43 pressures this last season. He's super twitchy. He has a basketball background. You see that in his crossover moves. So maybe not necessarily an impact guy right now. That's why he falls to this point in the draft, but great developmental tools for a team that's going to need help on the edge. With the 68th overall pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select Miami offensive tackle Markel Bell. This one gets a B plus for me. I do like the pick. I think they needed to get an insurance plan for Lane Johnson, and Bell is just that. I think at 6'9", nearly 350 pounds, the way he moves is impressive for a guy that size. And I think he can very well stick a tackle. But I think that's actually one of the issues I do have with this pick is he is a tackle only. He is not going to kick inside. And while he's a Lane Johnson replacement, he's really only played left tackle this past season for Miami. So I do worry about that lack of versatility, but there's no question that this guy with his movement skills, with his length, can be a plus pass protector in the NFL. I just worry that he might be a little too tall to be a great run blocker and gain leverage consistently because we saw that as an issue at Miami already. So that's why he falls to this point in the draft. And it's pretty clear that the Eagles and their ability to develop offensive linemen, even if they don't have Jeff Stoutland, has been one of the best in the NFL. We'll see if they can do the same with Bell. With the 69th overall pick, the Chicago Bears select Stanford tight end Sam Roush. And this may seem counterintuitive, given that this is the third tight end on the Bears roster, but I'm giving this one an A. Let me explain. This pick is for one reason only, his run blocking. He's nearly 270 pounds. You know, he's a big breakfast away from looking like an offensive tackle, and he can handle defensive ends in the running game. This guy is a true inline run blocker. And what this does is allow Ben Johnson to get into those coveted 13 personnel sets. 3 tight ends get all of those guys on the field at one time. And when they are, that's the best run blocking trio of tight ends in the NFL, bar none. Those guys can all really move people in the running game. And so they're going to be lining up in heavy sets often this next season, and they're going to be moving people off the line of scrimmage. I'm excited to see it. He offers a little bit developmentally as a pass catcher. He's a good athlete, but again, this one is for what he does in the running game. With the 70th pick in the NFL draft, the San Francisco 49ers select Texas Tech defensive end Romello Height. I love this pick. This is an A pick, especially for what the 49ers need. They just need pass rushing help. They had the fewest sacks in the NFL last season. They got run defenders in that front seven. They don't have someone with some juice, and that's what Height brings to the table. He was one of the best pass rushers in the country last year. He had over 60 pressures in a breakout season. He's really twitchy on tape. You see a guy who knows how to rush the passer too, knows how to gain leverage. He just is small. He ain't playing rundowns. He's 239 pounds. He'll get pushed around, but on third downs, this is a weapon that you can now deploy in that defense, and that is what they needed. With the 71st overall pick, the Washington Commanders select Clemson wide receiver Antonio Williams. I love this guy. This guy's an A-plus pick for me. This is exactly what they needed in this receiving core, someone with a little bit of speed, someone with a little bit of explosiveness. And while Antonio Williams has played slot over the course of his career, I think he can play on the outside as well. That's just where they needed him in that Clemson offense. I think he's a crafty route runner when you watch him on tape. And this is a guy who's been starting since his true freshman year at Clemson. He's had some injuries in the past, was banged up with an ankle early on this season. And when he was out, the Clemson offense went in the tank. He was this Clemson offense for a good chunk of last season. I think he's tough, reliable, and could be a day one starter for this Commanders team. With the 72nd overall pick, the Cincinnati Bengals select Washington cornerback Tacario Davis, and this is a B- for me. Obviously, it fills a need. They need a cornerback somewhere, and I think Tacario Davis, with one of the longest wingspans in this entire draft class, a big, rangy corner, I think he's an outside corner only. So I think this maybe moves Dax Hill to the slot for Cincinnati, but at least I think he's a guy who can probably start right away. He's been playing a ton of football ever since his days at Arizona. I just think his tape's a little bit up and down in true man coverage. Where he wins is press coverage. I think that's what we're going to be seeing a little more from maybe Cincinnati this year with an addition like that, because with those long arms, he can shut down routes before they start. It's off coverage and down the football field where he starts to get a little out of phase, that things get wonky with those long legs getting high on the outside. But a well worth it risk at this point in the draft for Cincinnati. With the 73rd overall pick, the New Orleans Saints select Georgia tight end Oscar Delp. I gave this one a B+ grade. I do think for Kellen Moore's offense, this is a perfect tight end too. I mean, that detached sort of tight end to the guy who moves across the formation, because Delp is a great blocker in space. I think that's his superpower and what he can bring to the table in this offense. And then not only that, but he has 4.5 speed. So on those sort of play actions where he's coming on overs or across the formation, I think he can be a real weapon on those. He just has never been a nuanced route runner and never really got featured in Georgia's offense. He was kind of an afterthought and really more utilized as a blocker this past season. But I think there's a good chance he's a better NFL player and more productive one than he was a collegiate tight end. With the 74th overall pick, the New York Giants select Notre Dame wide receiver Malachi Fields. This one gets an A grade for me, and not just because of my background here. It's because Malachi Fields is exactly what this offense needed. Everyone knows they wanted some size at the receiver position this offseason. They thought about a top 10, went elsewhere. They get that in the third round, and I think Fields is a perfect fit for Matt Nagy's offense to be the Rashee Rice role, the slot kind of role. It's not what he did at Notre Dame, but it's what he looks like physically. He's 6'4", 218 pounds, and how he moves. He has some of the smoothest hips for a guy that size, presents a great target over the middle of the football field, and he doesn't have the speed to really be an outside guy in the NFL. So I think that's where he ends up, and I think this receiving core now is starting to take shape. With the 75th pick, the Miami Dolphins select Texas Tech wide receiver Caleb Douglas. And unfortunately, I see this as one of the biggest reaches of the entire draft so far. So it's getting a D+ for me. You don't just take my word for it. This guy was outside the top 200 on the consensus board. And I think it's one big reason, the physicality. I think he gets pushed around far too easily on tape, especially at the catch point where I question his hands. He had a lot of drops over the course of his career. And so for the Miami Dolphins team that obviously needs wide receiver, and I think they need size specifically, that's why they draft him here, a 6'4", over 200-pound wide receiver. I just worry that they're not getting their money's worth with a pick like this. With the 76th overall pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Penn State quarterback Drew Aller. The once rumored top 10 pick maybe a year ago now falls to the third round after breaking his ankle this past fall at Penn State. But I like this one. I'm giving it a B grade for the Pittsburgh Steelers because if you are going to have Mike McCarthy develop someone in this draft class, and I think that's why you hired him as your head coach, Aller has a lot of physical tools, man. He's got the arm, he's got the size, he's got the feet in the pocket. He just doesn't have the accuracy. And can you fix that? Some guys have been able to, some guys haven't. But if Mike McCarthy can fix that with Drew Aller, I think they could have a starting quarterback on their hands. That's what his tape showed early on in his career. We just never really saw the next step in his development. So we'll see. I think it's a well-timed risk for the Pittsburgh Steelers. With the 77th pick, the Green Bay Packers select Chris McClellan, defensive tackle from Missouri. And I'm going to give it an A-, same grade as I gave the Brandon Cisse pick. They were both within 3 spots of where they're actually at on my board is where they came off the board in the NFL. So I can't hate on them too much. I think they both filled needs. And this one specifically, he was the best nose tackle on my board at this point in time. And everyone and their mother knows that the Green Bay Packers needed a nose tackle in this year's draft. I like that McClellan got better every single year of his career. He's a guy that has unique flexibility for a bigger dude. He just ran really hot and cold on tape, but his high-end reps got me really excited. I think if he continues to develop, this guy could be a stalwart on the interior for the Packers. With the 78th overall pick, the Indianapolis Colts select LSU safety A.J. Halsey, and this is a firm A grade from me. I think this is the perfect Nick Cross replacement. He is a great box safety prospect. He's 220 pounds. He's rocked up. He's a hitter over the middle of the football field, and he's at his best when he's kind of freed up as like a hole player where he can just see where the ball is going, where his eyes can lead him to wide receivers, and he can impose his will. To me, he's like Lou Anarumo's version of Von Bell that he had in that vaunted Cincinnati defense that almost won a Super Bowl way back when. I think that's the role you can expect next season. With the 79th pick, the Atlanta Falcons select Zachariah Branch, Georgia wide receiver. And this is an A pick for me. I think this is a great replacement for Darnell Mooney. In that offense, he can do a lot of similar things. And I think this guy's got some untapped potential. He is a crazy high-end athlete, not only from like a speed, change of direction standpoint, but he is rocked up. He's a physical slot receiver who can make tough catches in traffic, can break tackles after the catch. I think he got kind of thrown into a gimmicky role at Georgia because they didn't really have the quarterback to feature him in a different way. But at the NFL level, with Tua Tagovailoa, I think he's going to pair well with him in that offense, and I think he's going to have a unique role. So it is a great pick in the third round. With the 80th overall pick, the Baltimore Ravens select USC wide receiver Jacoby Lane, and this one gets a B- for me. He was outside my top 100. He was outside a lot of top 100s, truthfully, after the Senior Bowl, where he really just got pushed around. I think that's his biggest thing. In man coverage, he does not show the consistency in his route running. He's just very lackadaisical at this point. And I was surprised he came out as a junior, but maybe that's what the Ravens are buying into because he moves uniquely well for a guy 6 foot. He kind of looks like he should be on a basketball court with the way he can cross over, but just the down-to-down consistency is what left me wanting a little bit more. And then just the overall speed and explosiveness in his routes to consistently separate. I just never saw on tape. So the Ravens wanted size. They get size in this pick. They get a red zone threat, but I'm not sure you're going to ever get too much more out of Jacoby Lane. With pick number 81, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Albert Regis, defensive tackle out of Texas A&M. And I'm giving this one a C+. I hate to do it because I like Regis's game. I think he's a very sound run defender. I think he plays with great leverage. He has a squatty body. He can get into the backfield. He'll be good in that regard for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's more just fit. I thought they would attack pass rusher, try to get someone who can add a little juice to this interior, but Regis never had more than 13 pressures in a single season his entire collegiate career. He is really not a pass rusher. This is just a run first sort of guy to add to the rotation. So kind of head scratching why they would take that at this point in time in a deep DT class, but we'll see how it turns out. With the 82nd pick, the Minnesota Vikings select Iowa State defensive tackle Dominique Orange, and I give this one a B plus. I think this is a great fit for Orange and his skill set. He goes to a place where they are an attacking front. They are all about penetration there in Minnesota, especially in the running game, and that's what you see on tape from him at Iowa State. He's a guy who can really get to the edges of offensive linemen. He's not really a gap control guy. But the good thing is he's not going to be asked to be in Minnesota's scheme. So I think for those reasons, it's a good fit. And to get him here in the third round, I think the value is more than fine for what they needed. With the 83rd pick, the Carolina Panthers select Tennessee wide receiver Chris Brazzell, and this is an A-minus pick for me. I think for what the Panthers needed at wide receiver, he gives them the vertical threat. He's 6'4" and he ran a 4.37. He is impressive physically. The guy is explosive. He can really roll. And what I like is compared to the other Tennessee wide receivers that have come out in recent years, he's a little bit more flexible. You see a little bit more route running capability with him than you did with guys like Jalen Hyatt or Cedric Tillman or Deontay Thornton last year. So he's more of an all-around receiver. The biggest thing, though, is he's not even 200 pounds at 6'4". He looks like he should be playing basketball. He's got that sort of build. That's not an NFL wide receiver. So he's going to get pushed around a little bit. He's never going to be a complete receiver because of that. But I think for the deep ball and the deep threat they're missing in Carolina, he can be just that. With the 84th overall pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Georgia State wide receiver Ted Hurst. This one gets a B minus for me. Hurst is a unique physical talent, right? He's 6'4". He's over 200 pounds. He ran a 4.42. He jumped out the gym. He looks the part. And on tape, he has some crazy reps, but he is really up and down, really inconsistent. I see him as a big time project in terms of his route running ability. It's going to take him some time to adjust to the NFL level. You saw it even at the Senior Bowl. You saw it when he faced press coverage. Just getting off that was difficult for him. But they're going to miss the Mike Evans role in this offense. They don't have that outside vertical tree receiver. Ted Hurst at least has the prototypical traits to be one of those guys, even if I don't think year one he's necessarily going to hit the ground running. So you're hoping that once you get this guy in the building, you get him around some great route runners there that they have in Tampa Bay, that you can unlock the most out of this guy. With the 85th pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Georgia cornerback Dalen Everett, and I'm giving this one an A. I think this guy could very easily be a better pro than he was collegiate corner because when I watch him on tape, the man coverage traits are all there. You see the guy who was a former five-star coming into Georgia and a multi-year starter at Georgia a lot of the time. I mean, he ran a 4.38. He's got really smooth hips. He has a 6'5" wingspan. It's all there. He's just super inconsistent. I think his processing speed needs to get better. He needs to be better at reading routes. But he goes to a spot where, Jalen Ramsey's there. That's a great guy to learn from in terms of reading opposing wide receivers and what they do. He was a master at doing just that. So this guy, like I said, he could be a much better pro than he was even college corner. With the 86th pick, the Cleveland Browns select Florida offensive lineman Austin Barber, and I'm giving this pick an A minus. I love the Browns' strategy towards rebuilding their offensive line. Obviously, picked Spencer Fano in the first round, and now Barber here, but all offseason, they've been loading up on versatile offensive linemen, and Barber is another one. He's played tackle, left tackle over the course of his career at Florida, but I think with his flexibility, even though he's 6'7", I think he can play guard at the next level or tackle. And I think with his run blocking ability, guard may even be his best position because it would protect some of his foot speed issues as well. But you see a guy who's super reliable on tape, who I think could step in and start right away if you needed him. They don't, thankfully, right now, but this will provide good depth in a versatile piece going forward. With the 87th pick, the Miami Dolphins select Ohio State tight end Will Kaczmarek. This grade, honestly, I didn't know what to give this grade. I gave it a B, but I'll just tell you who he is. This is the best blocking tight end in the draft class, bar none. To me, his physicality at the point of attack, his versatility, he's like another offensive lineman out there. Truthfully, I think for his pocketbook, his best chance to just gain more weight and become an offensive lineman. But I digress. For the Miami Dolphins specifically, why I find it hard to grade is because he's never going to be a pass catcher. He's not that kind of athlete. That's not where he wins, even if I don't think he has bad hands. I think he can be reliable if he's open. So it's just a blocking tight end, but you got probably the best one in the draft class. With the 88th pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Oregon guard Emmanuel Pregnone, and this is an A for me. I think this guy is one of the better run blockers in this guard class. He's incredibly physical. He's a rocked up 314 pounds. He has long arms, and all he's done for numerous stops throughout his collegiate career is get better every single year. I think he falls here, though, because he is 24 years old. He'll be a 25-year-old rookie. A lot of those guys fell in this draft class, which is why Pregnone does too. But he doesn't need to start necessarily right away, but I think he could be like a sixth offensive lineman with that ability to move people off the line of scrimmage. And I think in time, he very easily could be one of those starting guards going forward. With the 89th pick, the Chicago Bears select Xavier Thomas, wide receiver out of LSU. And we've officially reached the point in the draft where we're drafting kick returners. I think that's what this is. I'm giving it a C+. Honestly, I don't really know what grade to give this because I think he's a darn good kick returner. He ran a 4.28 at the combine. He has real deal speed. He's just not a complete wide receiver. You're not drafting him here and saying, hey, in maybe 3 years, he's our number one or our number two. It's like, no, he'll always just be kind of a one trick, put him on the field, vertical threat kind of guy, even when he's out there. And that may not even be his role. He may just be your kick returner going forward. So that's what the Bears got. I like him in that role. So it's hard to put a number grade on it because people are drafting specialists here, but the Bears got themselves a pretty good specialist. With the 90th overall pick, the San Francisco 49ers select Kalen Black, running back out of Indiana. I unfortunately gave this one a D+. I had a late day 3 grade on Black. To me, he was reminiscent of a guy last year in Kyle Monungai, who they run really hard. They're undersized, but are tough runners. They can grind out some tough yards. You can maybe put them in a role. But even compared to Monungai, who went in the 7th round, I think Black is just much more limited as an athlete. You don't see the change of direction ability you see with Monungai. I don't really see much of a receiver. And he's 24 years old. He'll be a 25-year-old rookie. The guy's been in college forever. So I don't know how much more development you can expect from him. Obviously, we're drafting specialists at this point in time, but Black is really a limited specialist going forward. With the 91st pick, the Las Vegas Raiders select Texas A&M offensive lineman Trey Zune. This is an A+ pick. When you get a guy who's in my top 50 at 91 overall, I'm obviously going to love it. And I love it for a number of reasons. One is that Zune is super versatile. He's played left tackle for the majority of his career, but he's also played center this past year at Texas A&M. And I think he could play guard as well. The second reason, he's super athletic. I mean, the guy on the move is great. He uses his hands really well. His lateral agility is exactly what he'll need in Clint Kubiak's offense in that running scheme. I think he's a plug-and-play starter with how much football he's played. And if you're getting a plug-and-play starter on the offensive line at pick 91, you're hitting a home run. With the 92nd pick, the Dallas Cowboys select Michigan linebacker / edge rusher Jayshawn Barham. And I'm giving this one an A. I really like Jayshawn Barham's tape, specifically after he moved to edge, which is where I think he ends up for the Dallas Cowboys. Because in round 1, they got Malachi Lawrence, and he's a pass rush first guy, not a great run defender. Barham's the opposite. The Barham can stop the run. Even though he's undersized, even though he's a former linebacker, he is physical as can be in the running game. One of the best run defenders in this draft class. So I think he could even see the field early on early downs. You get Malachi Lawrence on 3rd downs, and you got a nice little duo there for the Dallas Cowboys to get this guy this late after only switching to edge and putting up the tape he did. I think you're going to see more progression from him as a pass rusher, and I think this guy has starter potential on the edge to get in the 90s. That's a great pick. With the 93rd overall pick, the Los Angeles Rams select Missouri offensive lineman Keegan Trost, and I'm going to give this one an A grade. His tape last year was good. He only allowed 7 pressures in the SEC. He falls to here, though, because his path to get here was very weird. He started at Morgan State in 2019. Then he went to Indiana State, then Wake Forest, and then Missouri this past year. He said he didn't even know if he was ever going to play in the NFL until like midway through last season. The guy is a unique prospect, but when you watch his tape, I couldn't believe how good it was. I mean, he looks like he's been playing offensive line forever. Kind of has, but the guy looks like he could start tomorrow in the NFL. He just isn't super physically imposing. He's probably going to have to be a guard or a center at the next level, but this has kind of been the Rams' MO. Take good offensive linemen who don't tick the boxes in some way, shape, or form and see if they can make it work. They've been making it work. I think they can make it work again with Trost. With the 94th overall pick, the Miami Dolphins select Louisville wide receiver Chris Bell, and this is an A minus pick for me. We all know why he fell here. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL towards the end of last season. That puts his rookie year in jeopardy, but the Dolphins uniquely, they don't necessarily need him as a rookie, right? This is a multi-year rebuild. So for them, it makes a lot of sense to take a chance on a project like this, especially when, as I noted earlier, they want size at receiver. This is one of the smallest receiving rooms in the NFL heading into this. And Chris Bell is 6'2", 222 pounds. He beat up cornerbacks on tape last year. I like how much better he got as a route runner every single year of his career. Now, I still think he has a ways to go. And unfortunately, he's not going to have this offseason to improve. But you're, low risk, high reward sort of pick here for the Miami Dolphins. With the 95th overall pick, the New England Patriots select Notre Dame tight end Eli Raridan. This is a B grade from me. This is just another one in the long run of blocking tight ends that we saw come off the board here on day two. Now, Raridan offers a little bit as a receiver. Maybe that's selling him short. He does have 4.61 speed. He does have a big 6'6" frame. He did flash at times after the catch. But I see a guy who's a little stiff as a route runner, never really was able to create his own space despite giving ample opportunity there at Notre Dame. But as a blocker, he can be a firm inline guy despite being 245 pounds. He's all muscle. This guy looks like a Greek god. So I think you're getting a solid run blocker with a little bit of receiving potential. It's a solid pick for where they're getting it in the 90s. With the 96th overall pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Jennings Dunker, offensive lineman out of Iowa, and I'm giving it a B minus. I think he could potentially be a starting guard, especially, in a Mike McCarthy offense. I think he could, run a lot of the zone scheme that he's been known for over the course of his career. That's what he did at Iowa. I just don't think he's an offensive tackle, and I do worry about his play in space a little bit. That was where he got a little top heavy. He had some balance issues. But at this point in time, the guy's played a ton of football. He has an extremely wide build. And, Mike McCarthy over the course of his career has loved those tackle converts to guards. I think that's what you got here with Dunker. With the 97th overall pick, the Minnesota Vikings select Northwestern offensive tackle Caleb Tiernan, and this gets a firm A from me. I can't believe how many blocking tight ends went over an actual offensive tackle that can block. I think he was my favorite swing tackle in this entire draft in terms of a guy that if you needed him to step in tomorrow and play snaps for you, that I think he wouldn't look out of place, that he wouldn't look like he'd get his butt kicked. And that for the Minnesota Vikings is all they need. If you looked at their injury issues last year, they had just the worst backup tackles in the entire NFL. They were getting whooped again and again and again. Tiernan provides insurance for that. I don't think he has starter upside. I think he has limited length, limited sort of athletic traits to become a plus starter, but I think you can get by with him. Maybe he could become a passable starter in time. With the 98th overall pick, the Minnesota Vikings select Jacoby Thomas, safety out of Miami. I'm going to give this one a C plus. I thought Thomas was kind of a late day three special teams sort of guy. He was a super late breakout, only his last year at Miami after transferring a couple times. He had 5 picks though this past season, a lot of great plays on the ball. And I think the most impressive thing about Thomas's tape is his willingness to commit. This guy, whether it's as a tackler in coverage, he goes 100 miles per hour every single play. But that's also kind of his detriment. He's one of the worst tacklers in this safety class as well. So at least going to be a good special teamer. That's why I thought this guy was going to be, somewhere in the 5th, 6th round is where he come off the board. But obviously, the Vikings saw starter upside with him. That's why they take him in the top 100. With the 99th overall pick, the Seattle Seahawks select Arkansas cornerback Julian Neal. I gave this one a B plus. I think he's an intriguing athlete to add to this secondary. I'm not necessarily sure where he ends up. I don't think he's for sure a Tariq Woolen replacement. I think he could be also a safety in that defense. He's a guy who's, he's over 6'1". He's over 200 pounds. He reminds me a little bit of Julian Love coming out of Notre Dame, who moved to safety himself for the Seattle Seahawks. So I do think that could be his path as well. But I was very impressed with just the ascension he had from Fresno State the year prior, transferring to the SEC to Arkansas, and on a team that a lot of people could have quit. He was tough. He tackled, he hit. He made a lot of plays on the football. He's just not a pure man cover sort of guy. I think he's better in zone coverage, but we'll see how the Seattle Seahawks deploy his talent. With the 100th overall pick and the last pick on day two, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Maryland defensive back Jalen Husky. I'm giving this one a C plus, unfortunately, and I'll explain my reasoning. This guy was a cornerback to start his career at Bowling Green. He had to switch to safety after transferring to Maryland because he really was not an athlete that could stick at cornerback. He didn't have the man cover traits to really go one-on-one. So moves to safety there. And even there, I thought he was a little bit of a fish out of water. I thought his instincts at safety were different. And even there as an athlete, he left a lot to be desired. So I saw this guy as more of a day three pick, even if I think he's a good football player. He's a sound football player. I just don't necessarily see starter upside. I see more of a special teamer going forward.